Oh man, the dice. Hey folks, Matt Colville here. MCDM is developing our own original role-playing game. Everyone on this team has worked on new original games before, but this is the first time this team has made an original game together. We started off with a lot of ambitious ideas about how our dice might work, how you resolved tasks by rolling the dice and consulting the bones. And spoilers, we threw all those ideas out. Our game uses a basic 2d6 roll plus your attribute score with d4s and d8s added in, or in some cases subtracted, depending on circumstance. It just turned out we didn't need custom dice for the game we were trying to make. But we started out really liking the idea of custom dice. We had all played the Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG, which used what I called funky dice. They're the normal polyhedrals everybody's familiar with, they just don't have numbers on them. They have symbols. In the Star Wars game, there's like 8 different symbols, which is a lot. I played this same system years ago in their Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I didn't think it was a good system for a tactical monster fighting game, but I thought it was cool. The different symbols on the dice were success and failure. When you make a roll, you add dice with successes on them based on your stats and skills, and then the GM adds dice with failures on it based on how hard the thing is you're trying to do. How skeptical is this NPC you're trying to convince? How agile is this stormtrooper you're trying to shoot? How slippery is this wall you're trying to climb? Then you roll all those dice, count successes and failures. If you got more successes than failures, you succeed. So that's a binary pass-fail mechanic, but you also get degrees of success. If I get 3 more successes than failures, I get a better result than if I only rolled 1 more success than failure. Then you have these other weird glyphs like triumph and despair. Good names. Where a triumph is a success that you can spend to power up some cool ability. A despair result means the GM gets to spend it to power up the bad guy's abilities. You also get advantage and threat. If the advantage symbol comes up, that means something good happens. Doesn't matter if you succeeded or failed, something good happens, and the situation gets more complicated in a good way. Get a threat? Well, then something bad happens, succeed or fail. Sure, you managed to lie to the guards and get past the checkpoint, but one stormtrooper noticed a rifle-shaped lump under your jacket and he says,
"Hey you, stop."
Do you stop or keep moving? Threat and advantage also cancel each other out, in case you end up getting both results on one roll. This system means you get several kinds of results. You succeed and something cool happens. Yay! You succeed, but something bad happens. Oh no. You fail, but something good happens. You fail and something bad happens. Oh, we hates that. Rolling dice in this system means building a dice pool. You add dice based on your stats, and then how skilled you are, and the GM adds dice based on how hard is this thing you're trying to do, or how dangerous it is. Now, we liked this. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's really cool for games that are more story-based. Less of a game where we're all taking turns attacking monsters and then being attacked by monsters, and more about, I'm going to try this, what happens, right? A single die roll in this system could be used to really move the plot forward. And that, I submit, is a good system for Star Wars, which is resolutely not about killing monsters, right? Star Wars is about drama and tension and that kind of pulp, out of the frying pan into the fire action you get in Star Wars or, Indiana Jones. Yes, you successfully leap from the speeding Jeep onto the truck. Congratulations. Oh, but I see you got a threat, which means something bad happens. So you jump from the Jeep to the truck, but you slip and you just manage to grab hold of the edge of the roof of the vehicle. You're on the truck, but you're hanging on for dear life. What do you do? Very cool, super fun to narrate, great for pulp action. However, not super good for a game like ours, which does feature quite prominently fighting monsters. One problem with the Star Wars system is that it takes time to build your dice pool. Both you and the GM are adding dice to it, and it takes time to decipher the results. Now, this is not a problem if a single die roll meaningfully advances the plot the way it should in Star Wars. But it is a big problem if each player is building a dice pool 5 or 6 times in a single encounter. No bueno. But that's okay, because we never intended to use this system. We just liked the idea that instead of numbers, you got symbols. It gave us a lot more control over the range and nature of the results. We tried one test where everything was an opposed roll. Attacker and defender both rolled. We used emojis for the symbols on our dice because it was easy. Daggers were successes and shields were failures. But that turned out to be a huge mess. I don't think that design lasted even an entire day. Instead, and for a long time, several months, we focused on just generating successes, the little dagger symbol. We liked this because it gave us a lot of control over the range of results. A normal D8 has one result that's 8 times greater than another result, but equally likely to happen. That makes for very swingy combats, unpredictable in what we consider not a super fun way. So games that work this way are always scaling up everyone's hit points to sort of absorb or mask that swinginess, in which case, why have the swinginess? Well, the real reason is because we've always done it this way and that's what everyone expects. But that is not a very compelling argument for us right now. We also liked the something cool happens result. We liked the idea of surges, which were from a different game we played where every once in a while you get this lightning bolt result and your character has a variety of things they can do with a surge. James designed a ton of skill stunts that were powered by surges, all very cool. So our dice had daggers for success and then a couple of surges, pretty rare, and then one crit symbol. Only one crit possible. With this system, a single facing on the die could have a single success or a couple of successes or a couple of successes and a surge or just a surge. When you rolled a number of attribute dice equal to your stats. So agility 4 meant you rolled 4 attribute dice and these had a high standard deviation, meaning they were less predictable. If you were trained or proficient in what you were trying to do, you also rolled the proficiency die, which was the only die with the crit on it. It had a low standard of deviation, meaning it was more reliable. Proficiency is more reliable than just raw power, and people who aren't proficient can't crit. That was our dice system for months. The dice went through lots of changes. Attribute dice were D8s and then D6s. The proficiency die was a D12, then a D8. Every playtest we noodled on the facings, changing the distribution of results, trying to dial in an experience. One big challenge was making it so players who were proficient were likely to succeed, but people who weren't proficient weren't useless. Well, a couple things happened. As we noodled on the dice to get the right balance of results, James looked at the math and was like, I think we could replace this whole thing with just 2d6. And I had said back in January, I like funky dice. But if we can do everything we want with normal dice, we should just use the normal dice. And meanwhile, I was looking at surges. We had stolen an idea from Halo, where your character has health, which works like normal hit points, but you also have stamina on top of health. Damage goes to stamina first, and then to your health, and you get all your stamina back at the end of the encounter. So there's this pool of hit points that you know you'll get back at the end of the fight. Might as well take some risks. As Aimsley Pinwhistle says, no point dying with your bag of tricks half full. Health is harder to get back. You basically need magical healing or you need to spend the night to recover health. So stamina is like the shield bar in Halo. Before we could even test this, I thought, what if you could also spend your stamina to get more movement? Well, this was an immediate hit. A first playtest with stamina that you could spend, everyone loved it. Really, you spend stamina to buy an extra maneuver, which I'm not going to bother explaining right this second. This video is long enough. But we liked the idea of stamina a lot. It was working and it was fun. Well, that was, it was a lot because your character also has what we call your class resource. I'm not going to get into that right now. Video long, blah, blah. But basically, go look at the Beast Heart class we designed for 5th edition. Ferocity is the Beast Heart's class resource. Each class in our game has something like this. They all work differently. They all serve their class. This idea that each class has its own unique resource that you get to manage is foundational to our game. We really like the idea that as the battle rages, you are doing more epic stuff. You don't start with all your resources and burn them down until the battle becomes incredibly tedious. You start by doing cool stuff, you build your resource, and you spend it on epic stuff. Very likely, this is the final design. So this meant we had your class resource, which you could spend to do cool things, stamina, which you could also spend to get an extra maneuver, and surges, which you could spend to do something cool if you rolled one. That is too many things to track. Too many notes, Herr Mozart. So surges had to go. It sucked because surges created this cool moment where you rolled and you went, hey, a surge. That is fun. But the reality is, while it was fun, we didn't need it. You already had your class resource, which is more fun. We realized that we could take most of these surge effects and turn them into things that you could do with your class resource. And it would be better because instead of like a generic skill stunt that anybody could buy with a surge, abilities you buy with your class resource can be unique to your class and therefore more flavorful while also reinforcing whatever the fantasy of your class is. So yeah, funky dice were cool and we liked them, but as the design evolved, we realized, I don't think we need any of this stuff. Just roll 2d6, normal d6s, no surges, and you get a bell curve, which we like for this, and this is the direction we were headed anyway. Now, I don't like bell curves on to-hit rolls. Why I don't like them is too boring to explain here, but you're not rolling to hit. Our attack roll is the damage roll. I love 2d6s for damage because it solves the d8 problem where some results are just way larger than others, even though they're all equally likely. So 2d6 plus whatever stat you're using, might 4 means +4 to your roll, simple. Then we use d4s for banes and boons. These are situational bonuses. Boons add bonuses to your roll, banes subtract, and we use the d8 as what we call the impact die. We use the impact die anytime we need some class ability to just be way better than the others, do more damage than the others. In this system, you roll a crit on an 11 or a 12 on your 2d6, and crits grant you an extra action. Not an extra turn, just a second action. Now this is nice for a lot of reasons. When you roll, you always know if you crit because those are the only 2d6s you're rolling. Boons and banes grant minor buffs and debuffs that the director can dole out without worrying too much about a single bane or boon having a disproportional effect on the result. And we, the designers, can use the impact die to give people big abilities that just cost a lot of your class resource. We had another really cool idea for a custom die, which lasted a long time, but which we eventually cut, and that is the cosmic die. The cosmic die was a confluence of two different ideas that we really liked. First, I wanted our game to have something in it that makes it explicitly a fantasy game. But nothing I've talked about in this video has anything to do with fantasy, the genre. You could build a game from any genre of fiction using these rules. Sure, the classes and ancestries will make this game explicitly a fantasy game, but some classes might not use magic. I wanted something in the actual core rules, some generalized mechanic available to all characters that said, these events, all of them, all of these characters, all these adventures are happening in an explicitly fantasy universe. So even if you were playing a human tactician with no access to magic, there was still some mechanic that everyone used that said, I am a character in a fantasy world. Sort of like Sanity from Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu RPG, originally built on Chaosium's basic role-playing system, but they add the Sanity mechanic to make their Cthulhu game feel like cosmic horror. What, in our game, makes it feel like fantasy. At the same time, there was this die from the Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG we thought was really clever. The Force die, which I have one of here. This die is super cool. You roll it to generate force points that you can spend on abilities. There's only one, and it has dark side and light side points. But interestingly, when you look at the different facings you see, it's a D12. So you would think there'd be 6 light side facings and 6 dark side facings. But no, there are more dark side facings, 7 versus 5. But some facings have 2 pips on them. And if you look, you notice most dark side facings only have 1 pip. Most light side facings have 2 pips. So, is the dark side more powerful? No. Quicker, easier, more seductive. This die is what Yoda was talking about. I thought this was brilliant for a Star Wars game. If you were a Jedi, well, this was a resource you had constant and ready access to. This die is a big part of your character. If you're not a Jedi, even if no one in your party is playing a Jedi, you still roll this die every once in a while. It's just up to your character to contextualize what it means. Luck? Fate? I just thought this was a great design and really delivered on the core fantasy of a Star Wars game. So once we started talking about what makes this a fantasy RPG system, what core mechanics are there that says we all live in an explicitly fantasy world, I thought, If you've read Strongholds and Followers or Kingdoms in Warfare, you know that our world, our game's fantasy world, has these cosmic forces battling over it. Law and chaos. You might have heard of them. These aren't abstract concepts. They're actual cosmic forces that act upon the world. Right out of Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion books. Classic. Normal people, even low-level PCs, are not necessarily aware of these forces. Most religions focus on good and evil. But regardless of whether you're aware of them, they exist, and they influence events. So, what if we took that idea, the cosmic forces of law and chaos, and put them on a die? The cosmic die. I thought, is this too weird? Is this too personal? Does this idea belong in our flagship fantasy RPG? But surprisingly, everybody really liked it. The core idea was that every character had some ability, usually only one, that cost law or chaos points to use. Probably this is determined by your class. Tacticians favor law, Furies favor chaos. And anyone can roll the cosmic die at any time. Well, I think we said something like once per day or something. However, once you roll, everyone gets to use the result. So yeah, if your character favors law, you might decide in a moment of desperation to roll the cosmic die, hoping to get the law symbol to power up your cool thing. But everyone gets to use the result. So if you roll chaos, then the bad guys probably get to do something cool. It's never certain. There were PCs who favored chaos, and there were enemies who favored law, but we liked that. We even said, the cosmos favors law when we rolled, and that made it sound appropriately portentous. And we loved the idea that there could be places in the world, or even some people, who might have like ambient law or chaos around them. Like an elven shrine might have been built on the site of some ancient battle where chaos won, and there's just always surplus chaos there people can use. First time we tested the cosmic die, first encounter, I think I was running the Delian Tomb. As soon as the heroes acted, as Lars's conduit was charging into battle, he said, I call upon my ancestors and roll the cosmic die. He didn't want to wait until he was desperate. He wanted to start by invoking the cosmos. And I was just immediately in love, because now I could imagine Aragorn, when he charged into battle shouting, Isildur, was invoking the cosmos. That's Aragorn's player deciding to roll the cosmic die. Aragorn didn't decide to invoke the cosmos. He's just calling on his ancestors, hoping they hear him, hoping no one else is listening. You can see how it would be up to you to decide, how does your character contextualize the idea of these cosmic forces? Do you think it's just luck? Is it calling upon your god, calling upon your ancestors? Or maybe you are well aware of these cosmic forces. Blood and souls for my lord Ariok. Man, we really liked the cosmic die. That's why we had to kill it. No, I'm kidding. I mean, we did cut it, partly because it was the last funky die, and we had managed to get everything else we wanted with normal dice, but also, we had made the cosmic die too important. There was one encounter where an Ankeg had grabbed Matt O'Driscoll's character and was almost certainly going to devour him on its next action. And I, in a moment of desperation, invoked the cosmos. I was playing Lynn, my talent PC. This is our psionic hero, like Eleven from Stranger Things, or like Jean Grey from the X-Men. And the talent favors law. Well, I got a law result, and my cosmic power was a huge telekinetic shove, like 50 feet, which is, that is a lot in this game. In fact, it was enough to shove the Ankeg off the cliff we were fighting on, and James ruled that forced movement breaks grapples, so OD was safe. It worked. I rolled the cosmic die, got the result I needed, very risky, saved Matt O'Driscoll's character, and killed the Ankeg. And it felt gross. It felt anticlimactic. Like, I didn't do this. The cosmic die did. It would have been way better if I'd done exactly the same thing, but the telekinetic shove was just something that cost a lot of my class resource to use. So then it's about the decisions I made, the tactical decisions I made about how to use my resource. That is our game, not one die roll decides our fate. We had sort of detected this problem earlier, but this really threw it into sharp relief. The cosmic die was just too powerful, and now it was too weird compared to the regular dice, so we cut it. Maybe it'll return in some form. Of all the dice, it's the one we still think about, and we could have a chart in the book that lets you generate the same results without a special die, but we really like this special die. We'll see. So that's it. That's our dice. Might change, but it's been working well so far. And at this point, you know a lot about our game, at least the core design. We'll talk about classes and ancestries later, and there are other systems we haven't said anything about yet, like negotiation. But these are the basics. 2d6 plus your attribute for damage, no attack roll. Defense reduces incoming damage. Armor adds to your defense. If you're being attacked and you reduce all the incoming damage to 0, you get to counter. Only the 2d6 counts as an attack, static damage does not, and so it ignores defense. You have stamina and health. Stamina replenishes at the end of the encounter, and you can spend 3 stamina to buy another maneuver on your turn. You've got Banes and Boons, which are minor situational buffs and debuffs, and then you have impact dice, which are for really powerful, expensive class abilities. Now, I will say, none of this is intended to make this game exciting. I've said all along, we just need the core system to work and get out of the way so we can have fun. The classes and ancestries, skills and titles, the things you can do, the things the monsters can do, the stories you can tell with this. That's what makes this exciting. So we'll talk about what we think our classes are soon, but this video is long enough and we covered a lot. Thanks for watching, folks. Our patrons already know all about this and more. I think these videos are about 6 months behind the Patreon, but we're catching up. Link to the Patreon below. Next video, we're going to take a step back from design and talk about everything we knew before we knew anything. Until then, folks, peace out.